Okay, let's call this evening's meeting to order. Would you please stand and help me recite the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well, welcome everybody, and thanks for attending tonight's meeting. I'd like to have a few visitors today. One, John Hendrickson from Kennedy McKee. So, John, where are you? There you are. Right. And then we also have the men's golf team. So, gentlemen, thank you for attending. Then we always invite anybody from the audience who wishes to address the trustees can do so at this time. Seeing none, let's move on to approval of minutes. And I would attend a motion to approve both sets when ready.
I move approval of both sets of minutes.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Second, discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Let's move on to the completions of the agenda, and if you look, we have a new handout, the adjustments to the agenda items. Is there any additions or revisions to the agendas?
On item B, I'd like to have some discussion on item number 1, personnel.
Okay. Is there any other modifications? And I'd take a motion to approve the agendas as revised.
So moved.
Right here.
Second.
Discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay. Next up is reports to the board. So, student government. Linda, are you? There you are. I didn't see you behind Jacob.
Good evening, Board of Trustees, and Mr. Chairman. It really has been a year since I haven't seen you guys. Sorry, I had to say that joke. I don't know about you guys, but I'm very glad to be back. I had a great Christmas break, but I hope you guys did too. And I'm ready to get started for this semester. So for International Club, they made over $100 in the tamales sale for spring break. They also set a date for their CLDP meetings, which stands for Collegiate Leadership Development Program, starting February 2nd, and it will be every other Thursdays from 2:30 to 5:30. Anyone is welcome. They're also working on workshops to inform students and community members on how to become members of the advisory board. Pi Theta Kappa had new officers. Luz Copian is their new president. Brenda Marquez, chair of service, and Catherine Ludlam is their SJ representative. They establish meetings every other Tuesday at 3 p.m. and they are planning to attend the regional convention in Wichita from March 1st through the 3rd at the Hyatt Regency. Choir is preparing for their Broadway concert March 7th at the Little Theater. Quiz Bowl last meeting was in Cowley College on December 1st. Emma Weeby placed 3rd as individual scoring. Their next competition will be January 26th at Cloud County. STEM program had a successful Glowforge make and take before Christmas break. Made about 30 different designs for people. If you're interested in looking at their pictures, they're available on their DC3 STEM page on Facebook. And SGA created various events for this week, for back to school, to welcome all the students. We had a photo booth, cakewalk, karaoke, a bunch of fun stuff to get the students feel welcome and entertained. We are also planning to attend downtown cleanup this Friday on the January 25th from 1 to 3 p.m. I think that would be a great way to start to get involved in the community, start off this year. And that would be all for our club reports. I hope you guys have a great evening, and thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
She always makes me happy. It makes me happy.
It's that glow.
It's that glow. Yeah. So we'll move on to the trustees report. So we'll start with Trustee Malone.
Okay. I have been spending my time studying figures and research on how we can reduce expenses at the college and by increasing the enrollment of the Ford County residents. Also, I would like to see us take the public education in Ford County 2 steps higher, to make it K through 14. That would include access, open access for all students that graduate from Ford County. And I have been in contact with Trustee Williams, who is a representative of, lives in Butler County, state representative. Some of the work that she is doing, although we don't agree on everything, I'm glad to see that a legislator taking some interest in what the situation is with, of course, in Butler County, they're overwhelmed with Sedgwick County residents, and of course, Sedgwick County at this time doesn't pay or reimburse any out-district tuition to Butler County, so that's one of her issues. And also like to point out that this is the 50th anniversary of the legislation in Kansas which prohibited the awarding of any athletic scholarship to a non-resident of Kansas. I think I'd like to see that law restored, and that only Kansas residents could be awarded scholarships to play athletics like is done in California. So those are some of my interests to take up this year.
Borstein?
Been reading some interesting articles about the concern countrywide for the students, as we heard from Dr. Milirons, who don't finish their degree. And the student debt is so staggering that those people are the ones who don't have the resources to pay back. So I think it's not just us that worries about the retention and recruiting and retention, but it is a problem in the whole field of education. And also want to say that I so appreciated the work session this morning. 7 o'clock isn't my favorite time of day, but it was very productive, I thought. And appreciate when we can get together and do some informal digging. And that's what we've done. We get acquainted with some of the things that we don't have time to do in the board meeting.
Thank you. Ms. Copeland?
I just wanted to say that some of you may have seen on 60 Minutes on Sunday night about the great difficulty of homeless in colleges. And I thought it was a fascinating story about young people who are trying to get an education and are homeless. And of course that issue looms large in urban community college campuses. So I thought that was interesting. Then I wanted to say the Glow Forge project at the end of last semester was fabulous. I asked them to create a couple of Christmas presents for me to give to our sons, and they were wildly the most loved Christmas presents of the year. So I'd like to thank those STEM students, and the work they did was a great hit in my household.
Jeremy?
I would like to echo, I think the meeting that we had with Dr. Milirons was phenomenal. I think it really opened a lot of interesting aspects. I mean, I think, and really the overarching theme that I took away from it is that we need to stop looking at college as to what we think the college should be for our students, but what they all think the college should be for them. Because it's, the growth of it and the changes are really outpacing the structure in which we supply it in. And so if we're going to keep pace, I think we need to pick up our pace. And so I'm excited about that. I think it brought up a lot of great topics for discussion through the year, and a lot of good tasks to give Dr. Nolte to start working on as we progress. And I really hope that we take an opportunity to sit down as a board at a separate time to really kind of hash some of those things and work through some of those topics. I think he brought up some great concepts and great ideas that I was just shocked. I mean, I think one of the most shocking things that I took away from that was the amount of incompletion rate for those with GPAs over 3.0. I I think we all kind of presume that, well, when somebody doesn't complete, it's because they're maybe not succeeding, but that's not the issue. And we need to make sure we're not failing our students in that way. And so I think that was a great opportunity, great thing to take away, and I really appreciate him coming in. And I gathered a lot of good feedback from not just the board, but the staff and faculty that we're able to meet, and I think we've heard great feedback across the board from that, so I hope that's echoed everywhere else. But, otherwise, it's been a great new year, and we look forward to keep working through it.
Thank Karen. Her grant, her Title V paid for that, right, Grant? Right, Karen? Right, Grant? So it paid for that, and Dr. Miller really enjoyed being with you guys, and he enjoys being on the college campus.
He's worthy of coming back.
Kathy?
Well, I echo the same thing Dr. Presley said, and my husband read about it in the newspaper, and I thought that coverage was wonderful, and he said, wow, I would have liked to have heard him. So the next time we bring him back, maybe we can open it up to the public in some areas too. But what I took from him is how can we help all of you students to navigate your academic pathway so that you are successful. And we do need to listen to you and what it is that's coming down the pipe that we can do to help you, just like what Dr. Presley said. And then after that, Dr. Cersei was talking and sent us a survey, which goes and is in a line with our HLC on what are we doing to start moving this college forward in the right path. So I hope all of us have filled that out, as well as the faculty. Then I attended their orientation for new staff, and he also spoke to all of them. But I was excited because we have some phenomenal instructors that I got to listen to say, oh, well, we're doing this book study on this. We're helping each other do this. It was just like a snowball listening to new things out there that instructors are going to be working with these students on this campus. And I like that. The one thing we do need to do a better job of is getting our students to understand instructors' office hours. It's not for an instructor to go in and close their door and work. It is, the door is open for you at this time to go in and talk to the professor and ask them what it is that they can help you with. So use that time for you as a tutoring to get help. It's not their work time. It is your time as a student to have access to your instructors. So if anything you take back today, use that and tell others that's what that time is for. And last, I would like to congratulate Van Astrup because he saved a life and got an award, and he is a former member of our foundation board. So hats off to him, and I'm very proud that he has been part of our college.
I have nothing to report tonight.
I think everybody said things that I'd like to have said about our meeting with Martin. So, all right, we'll move on to reports. So, Dr. Forgy.
Here with us tonight, John Hendrickson from Kennedy McKee and Company, and he's here to present the college's audit.
If you all have a copy of the audit in front of you, you open it up, there will be a stapled letter. Yes. And that's the governance letter. It's required communication between management, the board, and the auditor. So I'm just going to briefly go through it. It just states in the opening paragraph, we audited the financial statements of the college as of June 30th, 2018. Under the qualitative aspects of accounting practices, it states that management is responsible for the selection and use of appropriate accounting policies, and that the significant accounting policies are in Note A of the financial statements. During the year, there was a new accounting standard that was adopted. It was GASB Statement 75, and it deals with other post-employment benefits. And due to the adoption of this, there was a beginning liability had to be restated as part of that, and it is reflected in the statement of activities. We did not note any transactions that were entered into by the college that lacked authoritative guidance or census, and all significant transactions have been recorded in the financial statements in the proper period. At the bottom of the page is estimates, and this just shows the most significant estimates in your financial statements. The first one is allowance for doubtful accounts. That would mostly be on student accounts receivable. On the second page, management's estimate of self-insurance claims payable, which is based on claim changes or claims and changes in claim estimates and claim payments. And then the last one, which is probably the most significant, is management's estimate of the net OPEB obligation, which is based on an actuarial valuation, which I'll go over a little bit later. As far as difficulties encountered, if there were any difficulties encountered in performing the audit, they would be noted in this section. We did not have any. As far as corrected and uncorrected misstatements, we did make 2 adjustments. The first one was to record debt proceeds of $570,000. It was money that went directly to a trustee bank, so it was not reflected in the financial statements. And then the second one was debt proceeds on the bus, and the lender paid the vendor directly. As far as disagreements with management, if we had any disagreements regarding financial accounting, reporting, or auditing matters, they would be noted here. We did request certain representations from management, and they were included in a representation letter that was dated June 2nd. On page 3, as far as management's consultation with other independent accountants, if there were any disagreements, management could obtain a second opinion from a consulting accountant, and we're not aware of any consultations that occurred. So that's really all I have to go over on the governance letter. If you'll go to the audit, to the bound part of the audit report, a few pages in, it says page 1, and it says independent auditors report at the top. I'm going to start with it. It just states that we've audited the financial statements of the governmental activities, business type activities, each major fund, and the aggregate remaining fund information of the college as of June 30th, 2018. Those are the major funds that we're opining on. Under management's responsibility for the financial statements, it states that management is responsible for the preparation and fair presentation of the financial statements in accordance with generally accepted accounting standards, which includes the design, implementation, and maintenance of internal control relevant to the preparation and fair presentation of the financial statements so that they're free from material misstatement, whether due to error or fraud. And keep in mind that that means that there could be some misstatements that are immaterial and not adjusted. As far as auditor's responsibility, our responsibility is to express an opinion on the financial statements based on our audit, and that it's conducted in accordance with generally accepted auditing standards. And those standards require us to plan and perform the audit to obtain a reasonable assurance about whether the financial statements are free from material misstatements. So those are our responsibilities. If you turn to the second page under the opinions, it states that in our opinion, the financial statements referred to above present fairly in all material respects the respective position of the various opinion units of the college as of June 30th, 2018, in conformity with accounting principles generally accepted in the United States of America. So that's what we call an unmodified opinion or a clean opinion. So that's the opinion you hope to achieve. Under the required supplementary information, this paragraph is with regard to the management's discussion and analysis, and it just states that it is an essential part of the financial statement and it's required by the Governmental Accounting Standards Board. And in the last paragraph or the last sentence of the paragraph, it states that we do not express an opinion or provide any assurance on the information because we provide limited procedures on it. So we're not actually opining on the MD&A. That's really all I have to go over that on that letter. The MD&A starts on page 3. I'm not going to go over it. I am going to just have you go to page 15. This is the statement of financial position. So it shows the governmental activities and the business type activities. Your business type activities would be student housing, the bookstore, and food service. So it just shows total assets of 49 million. Deferred outflows of resources, which is similar to an asset, is 1.1 million. Liabilities is 30 million. There are deferred inflows of resources of 3.6 million, and then unrestricted total net position of $16 million. The net OPEB obligation is listed as the last liability. It's 5.2 million. The reason I'm pointing it out is that is the one that was restated because of the new standard, and there's a footnote on it, and I would like you to turn to that footnote. It's
What page?
50. Is it 52? Oh, it's sticking on me. Yeah, it's note Q on page 52. So if you look at this on the left-hand side of the page, toward the bottom, there's a place where it shows the changes in OPEB liability. So at the beginning of the year, the liability was $3.9 million. The increase in the liability of $354,000 was the restatement for the new standard. So the beginning of the year liability was actually $4.3 million after the restatement. And then you'll see service costs, interest costs, changes in assumption and employer contributions, and the net increase for the year is $925,000, which leaves the end of year net OPEB liability of $5.2 million. So it's about a $1.3 million change from the prior year. If you look at the top of page 53, one of the things that they're required to do is show you the current rate assumptions, and then what happens if those rates change by 1%. And you'll notice that on the discount rate, if the discount rate goes down 1%, it increases the liability by $1 million. And if it goes up 1%, it decreases it by $800,000. And then the other piece of that is the healthcare trend rate, which has the opposite effect. So if the healthcare trend rate goes up 1%, it increases about $1.2 million. If it goes down 1%, it decreases it about $1 million. So the thing that I just want to point out is, 1% makes a very big impact on your financial statements. That's really all I want to go over on that. I would like you to go toward the end of the report and go to page 81. This is a schedule of expenditures of federal awards. So you expended $5.4 million of federal awards during the year. And if you look at the student financial aid program, it's about 70% of the total. And if you go to page 83, there's a summary of auditor's results that we need to go over. And on the first line, it states that the auditor expresses an unmodified opinion on the financial statements, which we've already gone over. The next items 2 and items 3, are dealing with the financial statements themselves. So we did not have any significant deficiencies over the audit of the financial statements reported in the independent auditor's report on internal controls over financial reporting. So that's good. Item number 3, no instances of non-compliance material to the financial statements, which are required to be reported in accordance with government auditing standards. And then items 4 through 9 deal with the federal awards programs. So we did have 4 significant deficiencies that we're reporting on internal control over major award programs, and they're listed later. Item 5, we're required to opine on the programs that we audit as major programs, and we are issuing an unmodified opinion or a clean opinion on those, even though there were some deficiencies. Item number 7 shows the programs that we audited as major, which is the student financial aid cluster. So we're required to audit all of those programs together as one unit for our compliance testing. And then the last 2 items, the threshold for type A and type B programs is $750,000, and then the college does qualify as a low-risk auditee. If you turn to page 84, this is where the findings start. I'm not going to go over them because they're pretty specific. If you do have questions, it may be best to go over them with the applicable management because there is a lot of detail in them. I just want to make you aware of them. Management's responses are in here, and I believe that they're adequate to address the findings. That's all I really plan to go over. I know it's not a lot, but with a 90-page report, it's hard to start and then know where to stop. Is there any questions?
Sure. We'll have someone be able to read through the deficiencies.
I have a question going back to 52 and page 53. I didn't quite get what you were saying.
On the changes in the estimates?
Yes, have we went up or down, or?
Well, just what's required of this standard is the estimates that the actuary uses are required to be disclosed. So on the discount rate, they're estimating what's going to happen with the money that's in the plan. So if like the money invested, if the rate of return goes down, it's going to cause the liability to go up because there's going to be less money available. And same thing with the healthcare cost. If the healthcare cost increases by 1%, which means that you're going to be paying more, it's going to cause an increase in the liability, assuming all of the other things are equal. So, I mean, most of this is projecting what's going to happen with all of the costs of your retirees, and it's taking not only your current retirees but everyone working here and what their costs would be in retirement that the college would have to cover, and then it's discounted back to what would be considered a net present value. So it's just trying to measure in current dollars.
But is that getting better or worse?
Well, I mean, as costs go up, it's increasing.
Okay, how much?
Well, according to what happened this year, they're estimating that the net increase is $925,000, which leaves a $5.2 million liability. Now, the thing about this is because you're partially self-funded and you're covering the initial, I think it's $30,000 of cost of each retiree before the stop loss payments or the stop loss policy kicks in. So if you were to go to commercial insurance where the employee paid the deductible, this liability would probably drop off of the financial statements. So it is a measured liability under GAAP, but it's not necessarily a current cost.
Do you have any recommendations?
As long as you have that self-funded policy, this liability is going to be on the financial statements.
I know, and I don't know if this is your job as an auditor. Are you suggesting that that's a good thing or a bad thing, or that we should be looking at a different situation as far as going with a different health care?
Well, I think the issue is the cost of the employees is probably the most important thing, and if you dropped it and went to commercial coverage, what would happen to their premiums? Because you're covering some as an employer where you're matching, say, a single policy or something like that, and the employee is paying the rest of that policy. But if you went to commercial premiums, they would have the premium plus the deductible. So, that could cause, it could cause this liability to drop off your financial statements, but it may be an additional burden to the employee. So I think that's what you would need to evaluate.
Thank you. Now going to pages 82 and 83. You said there were some problems with the federal?
So when we do the testing, if we have any findings, you're talking about item 4 on page 83. So when we do the testing, if we have any findings where we're doing compliance testing, we're required to report them. So starting on page 84 is where those findings are reported, but they're pretty specific, and It would be better if you went over them with management where they could tell you the particulars of what happened in those specific instances.
Are you concerned about them?
I'm really not. That's why I said I think management's responses are adequate to those.
Thank you.
John, who establishes the scope of your audit? How's that established?
As far as,
Well, do you come in and so here you selected some of these.
are you talking about the uniform guidance testing just on the major programs?
Just one part of it.
Okay. So that is a little bit different. If you turn back to page 81, what we're required to do is when you look at these programs, there's 5.4 million. Our requirement is to split the awards into what are called Type A and Type B, and that split is at 750,000, which is stated on page 83. So what happens is, if it's a Type A program, it's required to be checked for compliance or audited for compliance once every 3 years. If it is under 750, it's not required to be tested. So what happens is the split occurs between those over 750, those under 750. And right now, the issue you have is the only program you have over 750,000 is student financial aid. So that's where our testing is directed.
So, but that's required once every 3 years.
It's required once every 3 years, but if you only have one Type A program, it's pretty difficult to meet the coverage rules and not examine it.
Okay, so you'll go ahead and hit it.
Because you have to hit 40% of the total expenditures, and that's why I pointed out it's about 70. So, I mean, the only way to hit the 40 is to audit the big program.
So will you, I know it's required over 750, will you look at anything below 750 just?
No, we're not required to.
Unless directed, right?
If it's directed by a federal agency, if they deem something to be high risk, then yes. An example of that was back when there was Recovery Act money. That was all deemed to be high risk, and it was all required to be looked at.
And if need, we can set up a meeting up with the
When I start reading the deficiencies, it's like reading kids off the phone. I mean, it's important.
Do we have any further questions for John or possibly Glendon at this point? I'd say.
I think probably the only thing, Dr. Forey, is just to, I obviously trying to quickly read through these, but if you can give us an interim follow-up on these. I mean, obviously there's already remediation efforts explained in here, and I appreciate that. A self-assessment in 3 months or a couple months of here's where we're at on this is what we're
Are you talking
doing.
about the deficiencies?
Yeah.
I'd be glad to get with Vice President Tomat, who's over financial aid, and we can put together something.
I appreciate that. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, John.
Thank you.
I mentioned this morning in our workshop about the amount received from the county, and we did receive $6.1 million in January 20th, and so we got that in. I've already got it wired to deposit in the Kansas Municipal Pool, so it's a nice addition to the revenue side of things. So I just wanted to point that out.
Do you want to tell them about your findings as far as HLC
I can. I mean,
with Scott and Scott in.
One of the things that when we kind of waiting to get the audit, Dr. Searcy and I got the HSC composite financial indicator worksheet out today. We spent most of the morning looking at it and putting the numbers in, and it's not going in the direction that we wanted it to go. And the major reason, and this is why I had John point this out, the major reason is we had this $1.3 million of expenditure in our liability that we have no control over, really, unless we do away with the self-insured program. But that's a $1.3 million expenditure that we didn't have last year. And another thing that we noticed last year when we were looking at the ratios, last year we kind of had a spike, and it was due to adding a spike upwards a little bit. It was due to adding the dome into the capital assets. So that was a good thing. Then this year that drops off, and then we have the additional $1.3 million expenditure due to the GASB 75 requirements. So that kind of puts us going back on a trend where we don't want to go. And this is preliminary, and we're going to be discussing, I think, with HLC about the requirement to include that self-insured program, that GASB requirement, because it really doesn't reflect the financial viability of the college from year to year. I mean, this is a liability, yes, but it's way in the future. It's, projected for, what would happen if you retirees, as John explained. So that's just something that it's a philosophical discussion that we would like to have with HLC, and whether if we could exclude that from the calculations. Don't know if they'll go for it or not, but
Like Trustee Malone said, I think he asked John basically, is this a good idea to have this self-insured or not a good idea? I don't know.
Well, yeah, and John kind of alluded to that. So if you go out to a private insurance like Blue Cross Blue Shield, your insurance premiums are going to go up significantly for the employees, and then how much then does the college offset that as well? So it could cost the college that way too. You don't know until you do kind of an analysis on it.
Maybe that's something we ought to kind of look at and just see what it would cost to do.
I know that the health insurance premiums for staff have not increased, I don't think, in several years.
Well, I was going to speak to this Dr. Porgy and say the way the insurance works here, self-insurance works here, is of great benefit to our employees, and it's something that is attractive to attracting and keeping great people.
One of the things that, I'll kind of follow up on that, and this would have no financial repercussions to college whatsoever, but one of the things that we're going to be proposing, I guess this upcoming year, will be to allow employees to contribute to an HSA, which is a tax-deferred health savings account, like an individual retirement account. No obligations to the college whatsoever. It's solely up to the employee. So
that's very good for us that had that before.
That's just another, I guess, benefit that we provide, to recruit good quality faculty and staff.
Okay. I'm trying to think outside the box.
I think you definitely have to look at different things. HSAs are good for some people and they work, so there's just new tools out there that I think it behooves us to look at different things and see if it makes sense to look in different directions.
Yeah, and if you're familiar with HSAs, it's one of those things like if you don't use it, it carries over. If you're in a cafeteria plan, Section 125, and you have medical expenses, if you don't use that during the year, you lose that. You can contribute, I think it's up to $26.25 or something like that per year, and have it tax withheld. And if you don't use it, you just lose it. But a HSA continues indefinitely right now.
It's a good tool. Okay. Anything else on the audit or financials here? And I think, Jeremy, your point was well taken. I think, especially when we get a chance to review the findings a little more, we have questions, and by all means, let's bring them up and we'll get them addressed. Okay. Dr. Ford, did you have anything further?
Don't believe it.
Okay. All right. So, Jacob?
Thank you for recognizing me. One of the things that we had talked about in a couple of meetings was recognition of our students, and I think this was an opportunity to recognize some of our student athletes who have very, very much achieved, not only in the athletic realm, but also in the classroom. And so tonight, I think I told you guys this back in maybe the August meeting, but we didn't get the award until just this month. So tonight I'd like to bring Coach Chris Robinson up and present him with the plaque for the 18 Birdies Foundation Academic National Champions for the 2018 academic year.
Good job.
With this, kind of give you some background on what his Coach Robinson's program has achieved. They were the NJCA National Academic Champions in 2013, 2014, and 2015, as well as winning the 18 Birdies Foundation Academic National Champion in 2012, 2014, and 2018. So obviously a great accomplishment. And then as you guys see, and I put in my report, in addition to that, this year's team, and not all of these young men were on last year's team. There are a number of them that were, but this year's team, first semester, had an amazing team GPA of 3.74 as a team, and I think we have a lot of students that are excited to get a 3.74. So to have a whole team achieve that at that level, I think is very big. So that's why I wanted to bring Coach Robinson here and recognize him in front of the board tonight. So thank you very much.
Thank
Jacob,
you.
can we have the teams stand up? Can we have the teams come up and say each of their names in there so they can be on the camera?
So, Chris, do you want to introduce them individually?
Yes.
Yeah. This is Volk. He's from Thailand. This is Gap. He's from Thailand. Will from Syracuse, Kansas. Stanley Lewis from England. Hayden from South Africa. Dylan Ratz from Dodge City. Chris from England. Luke Gleason from Dodge City. Logan Durst from Garden City. Andy Tagger from Colorado. And Ty from Wellington. That's what I'm Thank you.
Yeah, great job, gentlemen. We're very proud of you.
Thank you all.
That's mean for him to make you introduce everyone.
Yeah.
I'd just go ahead and say, have him introduce himself.
Nothing like putting you on the spot.
Thank you, guys.
That was my wife's name. Oh, I do too. I would have botched that one terribly.
That's awesome.
You're Lynn, right?
That's great. Okay. So let's move on to board action items. So first up is the state of Kansas, the investment pool. So Dr. Cordy.
Yes, this is to add Jessica West, our comptroller, as an agent to have authority to invest the fund. Mentioned that we invested $6 million today in that fund, and if I'm not around, this gives her the authority to do that if I'm gone.
All right.
And our rate right now with them is 2.4%.
Did that change at the first of the year?
And I checked that last week, so I won't say that's up today, but that was like as of last Friday.
Okay. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay. Auditing services.
This is I guess, a request from the board. There has been some discussion about changing audit firms. I've laid out some advantages and disadvantages of doing that, but this provides the administration the authority to go out with an RFP to bring back to the board for consideration, whether we want to change or not.
I might ask, since you are new to our group, if you had any real advice about what we've done in the past and what we should do in the future.
Well, you know, I mentioned the advantages and disadvantages. I have been at places where they've kept the same auditor for a long time, and I've been like in Oklahoma when I was there. They had passed a law, state legislature did, where colleges and universities had to change audit firms every 5 years. Like I said, there are good things and bad things about that. Fresh set of eyes can see things that the previous auditor didn't. However, knowing that a new auditor will be coming in following you gives the existing auditor a little bit more pressure to make sure that they are doing things right and discovering things. Another thing that changing or going out for an RFP does is when you get the bids back, are you getting the right value for the services? In other words, the current cost that you are paying, is that within industry standards? Is it higher, lower? So that's something you can evaluate. Some boards, you know, they're happy with their auditors and they like to stay with them. But that again, that's a board decision, and I've been at places where they've done both. It does not hurt to go out and get an RFP. It doesn't mean you're going to change anything. It's just you're going to get some information and evaluate. You may go out for an RFP and you may not get that many proposals back in. And there may not be. And one of the things you want to look at when you get proposals in from auditing firms is, have they performed audits of higher education institutions? I mean, that's kind of one of the requirements. If they've not done audits for higher education institutions, they're not going to be familiar with the processes and what goes on. So, I mean, and you can go out there on the website, the municipal website that has all the audits, and you can kind of see which firms have been doing which institutions in our area. And if you go back and look, say, like sewers, well, they use a local firm in Liberal, and they've been using the same firm for a number of years, and the same thing with Scott City and Hutch and at Pratt. So it's kind of what the board decides to do in this matter. I'm not going to say there's going to be advantages and disadvantages either way you go.
But it doesn't hurt to go out and look, just every once in a while, evaluate.
I would suggest the board should decide to at least put an RFP out, request for proposal out.
One of the things that I was surprised at, pleasantly surprised, by the way, is when I got to Kansas and that the auditors actually prepare the financial statements. That's not been the case wherever I've been at, in Oklahoma or Florida or in Texas. The accounting staff put together the financial statements, and the auditors come in and audit them. But nowhere in Kansas does it do that way, and so I'm not going to rock the boat.
I agree, and it's not that we have anything that is with our audit firm now, but the Higher Learning Commission suggested that we get some other ideas and check ourselves, and we may find out we have got the slice of cake right here in our own backyard. But they need to see that we were proactive in their suggestions and do what the college needs to do to correct certain areas.
I think it helps that you're doing your due diligence. And as I mentioned in my proposal, I thought John did a great job. He and his staff, very professional. Whenever we had a question, very prompt in answering it, and very satisfied with the work that they did.
I've been a trustee on an organization that had quite an endowment, not a college. The endowment was used for other things, but our requirement was every 3 years. And so every 3 years we changed. And fresh eyes, all I can say is fresh eyes see different things, slightly differently and over a long term for somebody who is as good as Dr. Forgy is, different people bringing up things, we'll have a better and better and more accurate audit and greater trust in financials than we've ever had. I'm already gaining trust every time Dr. Forgy speaks with us. But over time, I think different auditors give us fresh eyes and help our financial people do a better job.
This is just a great opportunity to, you guys are asking some really good questions, whether it be about health insurance or accounting. This is a great time for us to start kind of looking at some of these things. Not to make a change, just see if we're doing the right thing, because there might be things that are better. Kind of like Mark Milliron, there's things out there that you might want to look at that might be better.
So Maya, was that a motion you made?
I would like a motion that we put out an RFP for auditing services for next year. Do we do it on a 5-year contract?
3-year.
3-year contract for an RFP out for a 3-year auditing contract for Dodge City Community College.
Can I second that?
Okay. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay. All right, next up is the vehicle lease.
Our current lease on our vans is expiring, and we are looking at an alternative. And what we're looking at is a turtle top. It's more like, it's kind of like a shuttle, and if you'll let me, I'll show you some pictures of that. This is kind of what it looks like. It's kind of like a small airport shuttle. And then the come on. I'm not going to cooperate. I'm going to show you the inside of it.
I got shot down, but I asked if it could be purple inside, and he said no.
It didn't have purple seats, so.
Here we go. So here's the inside.
No,
So it's a little bit different than having to sit on a bench seat. And well, team left, but they would have more room to stretch out the legs. And I understand that these seats actually kind of move out a little bit. We're going to do this we're proposing a 3-month kind of a test basis on these things. And then we're doing it for 3 months so that all of our car vehicle leases are going to coincide together. One of the things about these turtle tops is they are more insurable. As you might recall, the regular 15 passenger vans, it's very hard to get insurance on them. These vehicles are more insurable, they're safer. They still don't require a CDL, so anybody can drive them, and there's a big difference if you've driven one of those 15 passenger vans versus one of these. It's a lot easier to drive one of these. And so that's the recommendation to the board.
Okay. Now, I see our attorney has read the lease form and has some concerns.
I did, and then they took them to Prestige, and Prestige came back and made the corrections.
So they got
or made the address my concerns.
So we've addressed all the concerns, the verbiage within the lease.
Right.
So that's been taken care of.
I move approval.
There's a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second. Discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay. Now we'll go into the academic calendar.
Good evening. You have your consideration form. This is to present to you the proposal for upcoming academic years. We are currently in the 2018-2019 academic year. You may recall that we presented and you approved the calendar for the 2019-2020 academic year, and that's currently published and posted on our websites and our learning management system. So what you have before you are 2 years beyond that, 2020, 2021, and 2021-2022. How did 20 there? There are no significant changes other than those caused by the shifting of various holidays, for instance. And so We have the 2 years here for your consideration. On the form, I listed the committee members per the board policy 833. We had 3 faculty representatives this time, as well as 3 representatives from administration who were appointed by Dr. Nolte. Are there any questions?
Yes, I have a few.
Thank you.
In January of 2021, what happens on 4, 5, 6, 7, 8?
The offices are open during that week of January 2021.
Yes.
I'm sorry, I had
Well, it's the
shifted
same
to-
week on both years, so.
Right.
The
So
offices are open, but
the
school
offices are open. Offices are open, so we'll, pending your approval, we can put the little boxes over those weeks.
Sorry. I just wasn't sure where they went.
Yeah.
And then I noticed that in 2021, there are no staff development days. And in 21, 22, there's only one. That can't be right, can it?
Could you point me to the specific dates?
Well, there aren't any dates that are scheduled for staff development in 2021.
Okay.
I couldn't find the right box anyway.
In 2021, we do have faculty development days on January 11th and 12th. You see they're labeled faculty contract days.
Yes.
That dark box. On August of 2020, we have faculty development days on the 10th and the 11th.
Okay, I was just confused with the mapping. It says it's going to be no classes, offices closed, faculty staff development days, and there are none of those marked that way.
There should be if you look
Well,
at
if
April.
that's the days, then that's fine.
So,
I'll just
I'm
mark
sorry,
myself.
Trustee Reichenborn, if you look in April 2021, April 1st and 2nd, that would be what used to be known as the Easter holiday, we currently call the spring holiday. And so you can, I think, see there that no classes, offices are closed, but the Thursday there is a faculty contract day.
Okay. I just noticed they're not marked according to the legend, is all. That's okay.
Okay.
As long as I was a little shocked with staff development days, so. Okay.
We had a really
I'm
good
good now.
discussion this morning at the work session about mini courses being offered during that large chunk of time. And I think that is phenomenal that we're even discussing about that. I think there's a lot of students that use that as an opportunity to pick up 3 hours or 2 hours or whatever.
It's really important. What you end up getting is that student that wants to get ahead, and then you have that students coming home from college somewhere, and they want to get those 3 hours, and they like that, and most of them do it. They work out very well. It also helps your numbers during the spring and during the fall, and then helps those things. But mini masters are good, and then we're also talking about 8-week classes, and we obviously we've got 16-week. That's traditional, but we want to look at 8 weeks and things like that. Mini masters are fun, and they go fast, and people enjoy them, and you get a lot of material in a few days.
Any other questions or comments on the calendar? I would entertain a motion to approve.
I move.
Second. Can I have a second? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. All right, let's move on to the interactive LED displays. So, Ms. Gustafson.
Good evening for the trustees and President Nolte. On behalf of Ryan Dean Osmus and the rest of our Title V team, we just wanted to come tell you a little more about why we're buying 8 Abram panels that cost $33,000 and $600. First of all, we're in year 4 of the Title V grant. I'm the director. We've been working with a lot of the team members here, but especially in this project, we've been working with Vice President who awarded it. And I'm just going to kind of go through the list. Marketing, the SARC, student services as well, and maintenance and IT. And we've been working as a team, and one of the goals is how do we sustain the money that we're spending. First of all, I need to tell you that the main goal is to strengthen the success and retention of students. And we're in the 4th year of this grant. So the money that we're asking to spend for the AVER panels for faculty, and that's who I also need to thank as well, is the 14 faculty members that are part of spending the multimedia money that's budgeted every year. And so part of their curriculum revision projects that Vice President Woolard, is helping us lead some of the professional development, like you guys so kindly mentioned, our guest speaker in January. So our teachers are very excited about getting the students more involved in their learning, and these AVER panels will help us do that. So our virtualization specialist, I can't believe I'm actually getting so nervous, I'm sorry. Our virtualization, and they all know I can talk, so our virtualization specialist worked with IT and maintenance to purchase these panels. And they're much brighter and they last longer. And so the students can go to the board. So what the faculty members from 7 different departments have devised pilots that they're testing this semester. So they'll be able to be interactive and utilize other multimedia than what we're just asking for tonight. So this is, again, our graduation and retention rates are our main goals, and we'll be collecting the data for that. So we hope that you're interested in purchasing those. Do you have any questions?
Do we have any on campus now?
Yes, we have a couple AVER panels. In fact, in the Connection Center, we've been utilizing them. Why we chose those panels over the previous ones we had, they were harder to learn. These AVER panels, in about 10 minutes, a faculty member can get in there and use them, and the students can use them as well. Now we have 2 installed in SARC, and they've started to use the boards as well.
And they don't require projectors.
Pardon?
They don't require projectors.
They don't require, yes, projectors. So maintenance can install them, so it does not require another added expense to get another company. They're 86 inches, so they're easier to see. So for all of our students that are 18 or 85 that are taking classes can see the material and be involved. And the sustainability is they last a lot longer. The projectors, they don't require bulbs. They need less technology. The speakers are built into the panels, so we don't have to buy all this other multimedia amplifiers and etc. So we just usually need like a podium or some kind of stand for the teacher and to put in a bare minimum of the technology. And we're now getting hover cameras, document cameras, so they will project on the screen, and they're now small. They're really like my hand. You know, they're about that size now instead of the big old ones that we used to have. So what has happened, like for example, Skylar Callahan went to several conferences in the state of Kansas and talked to other colleges what they were using. We did some demos with the teachers to see what they were interested in. So we didn't just go purchase them. We've also talked to maintenance and IT and got approval from the administrators that also were on the tours too that said they were okay in that perspective. So, and the teachers have been using them. And I think that's what we all want, is they're being used and not just a big TV on the screen. That curriculum is being changed and the college is providing professional development and working together as a team. So for example, we're using Dr. Hawarda's office to have some of that professional development where we're talking about what they want to accomplish. And we're talking about high-risk students. and the ones that are doing well. We're talking about what we want to accomplish, what the teachers want to accomplish. So we have some real discussions going on, and I'm pumped about it. So, what other questions do you have?
Change is hard. So the in-service aspect of that is very, very important for instructors that change is hard. So we want to make their transition as easy as possible. So I think that the in-service piece is huge. I'm excited that we're in the 21st century.
And I want to compliment you also, Karen, you and Chloe, for Mark even called me after when he was getting ready to get on the plane to thank me for the advising meeting he had with you guys. He said that is probably one of the best things he's seen with it. You know, everybody was excited to be there, and this was all faculty, and happy to be advising students and helping students be where they need to be. So he was pretty pumped. He would love to come back, by the way.
Oh, that's great. We have a pilot group of faculty that are going to work with the Connection Center, which is Chloe Wersch and myself, to help students transfer successfully. Because there's so many questions that they have and so many hurdles that they have. And so our goal is to try to help get the information to our advisors and what they need to do, because they're the content experts. And they've been helping, I can't say the words, to help the teachers coordinate with the other colleges. Sorry, I just had it. Anyway, is helping make sure that they know that they can transfer all the courses. And that's what we want. You know, work harder towards 100%.
And these faculty all volunteered. Didn't know they were going to get a little stipend from the grant. I promise you, they did not know that. They went ahead and actually volunteered. So that's
16 faculty members.
With the IVR panels, we could set up a demo for the board when some are installed, if there would be interest in that.
I would love that. If the board doesn't want to do that, call me.
Fantastic. That'd be great. Yeah.
Good job.
All right.
Thank you so
Thank you.
much. Appreciate you.
Thanks.
You have a motion?
So moved.
Second? Second from Jeremy. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. All right, we have no unfinished business, and so let us take about a 5-minute break, and we'll resume session about 12 after, and then when we do that, we'll go into our reorganizational meeting.
That's good.
Okay, we are now back in session. And Mr. President, you are in control.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Chair. I call for nominations for the appointment of the chairman.
I nominate Gary for chair. Can we nominate vice chair also? Is just
You can. You actually can. Directions. Yes.
okay, and Jeremy for vice chair.
Okay. Good. Are there any other further nominations?
Mr. Chairman, I move the nomination cease and the candidates be elected by acclamation.
Okay. All those in favor say aye.
We need a second for the motion.
I'll second that.
Okay.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Motion carries. Congratulations. I hand this to you now, sir.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you for the directions here.
Always helpful.
That's always helpful.
As long as you read them.
Congratulations to both of you.
And thank you for doing it.
Thank you all for your trust. Okay, we'll move on to appointments. If there's anybody that would like to change or do something different, please let me know. But for now, I'd like to keep things the way they are. Terry being the parliamentarian, I'll take the role as alternate. I would like to change the, no, pardon me, Kathy's still the KCCT rep. I'll be the, yes, I'm changing that. Yes, I read that. But Kathy, I'd like for you to be the rep, and I'll be the alternate.
Okay.
Okay. Foundations rep, Ms. Corbett. Okay. Alternate, Dr. Preston. Okay. And then RSVP representative. Sam.
Yes. I really appreciate that organization, and I'm glad to do that.
And I'd like for our subcommittees to stay the same for now. And especially I'd like to see more action in these as we get more understanding of our roles and go forward. And we can probably do a better job in serving these roles now that we just kind of getting our feet underneath us. So if that's okay with everybody on these, if you have a suggestion for me, I would sure entertain it. Okay. Seeing none, we'll move on. And I guess we'll appoint Dr. Nolte as the secretary and clerk of the board. And
Do we have
okay.
to have votes on these?
A motion to accept that.
You have to motion to accept the appointments, okay. So when we do these, yes, okay. So do I, on the first of on the board, I'll take a motion to accept those appointments as presented. Okay, all right.
I move.
Is there a second? Discussion? Is there a second? Okay. Discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, and then we'll move on to the appointment of Dr. Nolte as secretary and clerk of the board. Ms. Petty is the deputy secretary and clerk and freedom of information officer. Treasurer of the board will be Dr. Forgy, and legal counsel, Glenn Kurtz. Do you have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay. So that takes care of that. So let's move on to item D, which will be board policy 212, conflicts of interest. This will be first information, so.
Okay, thank you. This came to our attention from your board clerk, Carla Petit, and she sent an email to Glenn Kurtz and I, and it had some verbiage that was outdated related to your conflict of interest first reading policy. Previously, your organizational meeting was in June, and then when they changed the elections, your organizational meeting is now in January. So the changes are to reflect that, to bring the policy up to date. And I think Mr. Curbs made a review. Do you have any comments, Glenn?
No, I don't.
All right. So this is just to get us up to date with the organizational meeting and the verbiage in the policy. We'll bring it back to you for the approval with the second reading.
Okay. Is there any further questions on this revision? Okay. Then we'll have the second reading next month. Moving on, we'll go to Board Policy 210, Code of Ethics.
This comes out of the Governance Committee. Trustee Korvalek, Trustee Ramsauer, and Trustee Presley initiated this and then sent it for your review. We had not updated the policy, I believe, since 1999, and there is a current policy that is in there for you to review. And I would one of the trustees on the committee want to speak up about the three areas that you drew this from and the information that you had. Trustee Ramsauer, did you want to comment, or Trustee Korvalek?
I think that we used various places and conferences and took information from books that we have read on leadership and compiled it for all of you to see. We tried to use the examples that ACCT had as well as other resources.
AG
Yes.
Those were our two
LGBT.
primary sources, and then we had several secondary, is how I feel like it. Is that what you think, Kathy? We have, okay. That's how I felt like, because we did some of this on our own.
And then the review, go ahead, I'm sorry. The review then came from the 3 trustees, and then also Glenn Curbs and myself. And this is just presented for information and discussion as a first reading.
Well, I do applaud the team's effort on this. I like it. It cleans it up and it makes it to the more code that I'm familiar with seeing. So I think the group did good work. So thank you.
I think it raises some real issues. I think this particular policy is more directed for boards that are appointed, like the governor. And about half of the community colleges in the country or the world are appointed, and about half are elected. Just to give you one example, just a few short years ago, one of the prior board members that was elected here became appointed by our governor to the Board of Regents, and one of the things he was expected to do was try to dissolve this college. And it actually convinced the entire board in June of 2014 that was the right thing to do, and there was a unanimous vote, 6-0, to adopt a resolution that would do just that. And if you go back to Shane's YouTube video, he says, let's get the elephant in the room out of the way. There will be no more Dodge City Community College. Let's get that out of the way. It will cease to exist. And still, we had 6 trustees that were unanimous at that time to vote that. Fortunately, the lady sitting next to me, 2 months later, was standing in front of a town meeting saying that she had thought about this and it wasn't such a good idea after all. And 2 other trustees also joined that, so it happened. Now my question is under this policy, did Florist Jean Hampton do anything unethical in saving this college from being dissolved? I don't think so, but I think it could be read into this policy that would be unethical. So I'd like some comments about that.
You're on number 10, speak with one voice as a board member once a board decision or policy
Well,
is
that's
made.
the last one, but I think there's another one in there.
We
also
did
speaks to
discuss that. We talked about that we are an elected board and the limitations that we have versus one that is an appointed board. Because, like Maya said, 75% of trustees are appointed usually. So we did discuss that and take that into consideration.
Well, can you answer my question?
I don't think we would have limited her with that.
Why?
I think she can speak not as a board, but she was speaking there as probably her own thoughts.
As a board member.
I wasn't there, so I don't know if she spoke as a board member or with her own thoughts.
Well, I mean, my memory would be, and I was cheering her on, but take another example of a few years ago we had a customized training program. It was a multi-million-dollar fraud, and it took trustees to speak out against it to stop it. But that was a policy of the college to have those courses, which were fake courses, run through the college. Now, I mean, should a trustee say we can't have that anymore? Or we should continue with the fraud?
Did I say something? on the issue that Trustee Malone was describing, we didn't have all the information at first. And we were sold a bill of goods. It was like a snake oil salesman. And the Regent's attorney later in their meeting packet had the statement that she had researched this possibility. There were no laws that would allow a community college to be disbanded without a vote of the people, which is how they got there in the first place. And there were so many other things we learned within the proposal when we got the famous white paper that did not stack up. So it was a matter of timing when I really got inspired to carry that load.
Back to the situation at hand. The 10th one, speak with one voice as a board member. I thought that these are bullet points and not numbered, so I'm referring to the last bullet on page 1. Welcome and encourage active cooperation by citizens, organizations, and the media by communicating with respect to policy on current college operations and proposed future developments. And that's why I thought that that would cover what you're concerned about, Terry. And I understand your concern. It's a legitimate concern.
Well, when we go to the KACCT, that's their mantra, I guess, is to speak with one voice. Johnson County has no more, they don't have anything, and I tell you, they have nothing in common with us. Butler County probably doesn't have anything common with us. Johnson County and Butler County control, Johnson County probably controls the legislature from their vast numbers. We had the due process thing that came up a couple of years ago. That was, I think, started with the now former president of Garden City Community College. It was kind of his baby. We didn't have much of a chance to talk about that. In fact, found out about it accidentally. In any event, Dodge City Community College says that doesn't fit or what we think we should have, what type of policy we should have for our faculty. And according to, I guess, President Nolte and Dr. Reeves, that you were met with some disgruntlement by the KACT because
it wasn't very well liked.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the problem with that type of thing. Number one, I can't imagine any policies that, as far as that Johnson County and us would have in common at all. And so I think you have to be careful about saying someone is unethical when they speak against what they believe is bad policy, especially if you're an elected individual.
So what's your suggestion, Terry? Should we remove that line? Is that what you're...
What's that?
Are you proposing to remove that line? Because that's what we're discussing, is this...
Well, I haven't looked at it, Jeremy, with that idea in mind, but, I mean, we've discussed this at ACCT meetings, the difference between political candidates that are elected that have a little bit of a different, I guess, responsibility as opposed to appointed ones, that if you don't do what the governor says, then you won't be appointed long, type of thing.
Our main concern was we have this in as a board policy, and it had not been updated for 20 years. So looking at policies, we need to bring that up to date.
That raises another question. Once a policy is in effect, under this policy, how do you ever attack a policy that's in effect? Because the board has already spoken.
Well, I think the spirit of the sentence that you're reading is probably not, if you take it literal as it's written, I understand what you're saying.
Mm-hmm.
I think the spirit is that this is that it's a collective, and that once a decision is made through debate, discussion, and education, that then we work together striving towards the single goal that the majority agreed upon. but I understand your interpretation of it. So what I'm asking is maybe you can bring back a suggestion to us so that we can better.
I'll try, and I'll get it out early. I'm not sure I have any magic language.
Let's take the helicopter program. Many of you think it's all sweetness and light, and I think it's a travesty. I think my First Amendment right of freedom of expression outweighs anything you're going to put into some code of ethics here, that I have to agree with your opinion on this, and that you're saying I don't have the right to express that opinion outside of this room. And I'm disagreeing with you wholeheartedly, and I will not stop expressing my opinion outside this room. If it's 6-1, it's 6-1, but I'm not going to stop expressing my opinion, because that right is guaranteed me by the Constitution of the United States, and this board cannot take that away from me.
Dan, I'm not going to stand for that, because that was a total mischaracterization of your peer's position on the helicopter program. That was absolutely false.
True.
And so don't be making those types of comments, because that was not representing
yours,
anybody's opinion here.
You're as anxious to get rid of it as I am.
Represent your opinion, but don't sit there and mischaracterize everybody else's opinion.
Okay, I'm wrong. Hoping then you agree with me that we should get rid of it.
Get rid of what?
The helicopter program.
We're going to talk about this policy. I'm sure add that to new business. We're going to talk about that.
I'm just giving you an example of something we disagree on.
I understand. We all like to pull these things up and use them as our soapboxes too. So it's fun games. But what we're talking about is this policy. I understand the examples and how they're brought up. But if we're going to make progress, let's figure out how to update this policy, which is 20 years aged, and then we need to update. So let's work together on figuring out how to update this policy.
I think what the mission of that statement was is for the board to work in harmony. That's what it's all about. I mean, in other words, we can all agree to disagree on certain things. But part of the reason for that one sentence is when you leave the room, you have an understanding and agree.
Well, the idea of the code of ethics is that everybody has the understanding that the institution you're serving comes first, and not the politics of things. And an understanding that a trustee has no power of one, it's just the power of the group. Yes, there's going to be disagreements with positions, but the idea of this is that you don't do anything outside that can put the institution at risk. That's the spirit of it. And this, you might think it's politics, but it really, we weren't elected to this board to play politics. The word trust means we were put in trust of the Fort County taxpayers' asset here. And then we need to conduct ourselves with that first and foremost in mind, and not play games of politics, and understand things that we can do out in public can be damaging to the institution. So the Code of Ethics is a guideline to help us see that and make sure that anything we do in public, that the institution's reputation and everything comes first. That's basically all this is.
So obviously it's a first reading. We have some things to go back and revise. I appreciate any input that anybody has, and we'll revisit it, rewrite it. We'll have second reading.
As a committee member,
We'll keep
I'm
reading,
happy
we'll keep
to go
rewriting
back
until we're
and work
comfortable.
on that statement and maybe strengthen a couple others, and it's a work in progress.
And not to belabor the point about the helicopter program, many of us were brought into this situation and have been in there. It's been going on for 10 years. So we're trying to make it better, or make an interesting situation into a better situation. That's all we're trying to do.
So much.
We're kind of late to the dance, some of us are.
Yeah, well, we're all late to the dance.
Okay. Any other comments or things on board policy 210?
Thanks for all your work, folks.
Okay, we had a request to take item 1 out of consent. Bring it forward. Dan, you had a concern with that?
1B. 1B under personnel. I don't object to the salary. I think the reward for effort is well placed. I think that the foundation director has done a great job. What I object to is the same thing I've objected to a number of times in these meetings, that we always, and I mean always, have funds for raises for non-teaching positions, and then we struggle to come up with any funds, reasonable amount of funds for faculty positions. And it just goes on and on and on. This person has done a great job, but we have faculty members that have also done a terrific job at their job. We would never consider giving them a $3,000 raise this year, you know? And, I mean, the money's not there, so.
If I may explain a little bit for this particular salary increase, it is on the consideration form. This raise is not from the college, it is from the foundation. So this was a raise voted for and discussed by the foundation board. I would imagine, as you said, in regards to her performance, obviously our director, Chris, has done a wonderful job because of the success of the gala and the success she's been having. And correct me if I'm wrong, Chris, they did offer some type of bonus for her. And Chris, personally, because she's a wonderful person, ethically felt that that was not the appropriate way. And so instead, then they felt that a raise would be more appropriate. And so how we split the salary for the foundation director is a percentage that they reimburse their portion to the college every June, is what it originally kind of states in her original minutes. And then we pick up the other portion of it so she can still be an employee of the college, and then we help the foundation by paying for her fringe benefits. So this particular raise, I hear your concern.
I'm not saying it's, I don't have a concern. I'm not saying it's inappropriate.
Okay.
I think the raise is very appropriate. I'm just saying it always baffles me that we have funds, or there are funds available from somewhere to give administrative staff raises, and we can't find the managed funds for raises for faculty.
So are you suggesting that the foundations pay for faculty?
I'm not. But it disturbs me that we can't find funds for that.
Well, this isn't college funds, it's foundation funds.
It's not institutional funds.
Okay. So since that has moved into new business, that's covered out of the consent, so we need to take an action on it. So,
I move to approve.
okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Did I miss, Carla, did I miss anything else that we put on here on this new business? I think I missed it. Okay. So then, we struck that one, and then we added that other item 11. So those are on your consent. We approved the agenda. So do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Okay, is there a second? Second. Discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, we will now go into executive session. I will turn this over to Attorney Glenn Kurtz.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, I recommend the board recess into executive session to discuss a request for sabbatical leave pursuant to the personnel matters of non-elected personnel exception to the Kansas Open Meetings Act, KSA 754319B1. The open meeting to resume in this location at 7:52. 10 minutes, is that an adequate time? Is that Dr. Warden? Okay, at 7:52. In addition to the trustees, the president, vice president Horta, Dean Osmus, Christy Oshweger, and the college attorney should be included in the executive session.
Is there a motion?
I move.
Second.
If the dean isn't here.
Oh, that's okay. Without Dean Osmus.
Without Dean Osmus. Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. We are now in executive session until 7:52.
Yeah. I'll just sit down and you can sit there. That's okay.
They're gonna ask you a bunch of questions.
As long as they're not math.
I hear you. Well, then Dr. Forgy will ask you a question on math. I know.
Oh, okay.
We are now back in session, and there is action to be taken. Dr. Warden.
We are requesting a sabbatical leave for the fall of 2019 for Catherine Falcon, who's been full-time faculty since 2008 in cosmetology. She would be using the sabbatical leave to do for student teaching towards her bachelor's in elementary education from Newman. And we ask you to approve her request for sabbatical leave.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion?
She has two really sweet kids.
By way of discussion, Catherine, would you like to introduce yourself to the board?
Again, my name's Catherine Falcon. I've been a faculty member in cosmetology since 2008. I saw the opportunity to go back and get my bachelor's degree, and I jumped on it. I took 19 credits last semester, 19 credits this semester. Employed full-time. I do have 4 kids. I'll be hopefully graduated with my degree by this time next year. So.
Are you following in your grandmother's footsteps?
My grandmother is a retired teacher, and my mother is a teacher, and so yes, I enjoy my classes. A lot of the information that I'm gathering, although they are for elementary school, I am being able to implement some of those things that I'm already doing in my cosmetology classes now. So.
Well, we celebrate your progress.
Thank you.
And we're excited about the future and really happy for you and applaud you for your efforts.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
And we appreciate the role model.
Thank you.
Still have to take action, so there has been a motion and it's been seconded. So all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Right. Thank you again.
Thank you very much.
This is when I wish I was still principal, because I'd be trying to hire you right now. In 2 years, I would still be working on that.
Well, you can put a bug in somebody's ear.
Yes, I can.
Appreciate it very much.
You know her well.
You're free to go. Celebrate.
Well, I'll go to class then. Thank you very much.
Okay. What?
Look at
I think I have it right. Exactly. Okay, we need to go into another executive session, so I will turn it over to Mr. Kirsch.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, I recommend the board recess into executive session to discuss negotiations with the Professional Relations Committee of the Dodge City Community College Faculty Association for the 2018-2019 school year contract pursuant to the employer-employee negotiations exception to the Kansas Open Meetings Act, KSA 75-4319B3. The open meeting to resume in this location at 8:10 p.m. In addition to the trustees, the president, the college attorney, Vice President Hawarda, Vice President Forgy, and Carla Petit should be included in the executive session.
Do I have a motion? And a second.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. We are now in executive session till 8:10.
That calculation is based on 0, right?
Okay.
Historically, it's always been matched.
That's what I was.
So
We are
And
now
this
back
is
in
just
session.
Sorry.
Okay.
No action.
No action taken on executive item B, so we now need to recess into another executive session. So,
Mr. Chairman, I recommend the board recess into executive session to discuss the results of a background check on a new employee pursuant to the personnel matters of non-elected personnel exception to the Kansas Open Meetings Act, KSA 75-4319B1. The open meeting to resume in this location at 8:25 p.m. In addition to the trustees, the president, Christy Oshwiger, Jacob Ripple, and the college attorney should be included in the executive session.
okay. Do I have a motion? So moved. Second? Second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. We are now in executive session until 8:25. All right, we are now back in session, and there is action being taken. And we look for a motion to approve the hiring or the appointment of Lee Harris Sabithan, assistant football coach.
So
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. All right, motion carried. So that concludes tonight's business, and we thank you all, and have a great rest of your evening, and
Drive safe.
drive safe, good weather, and enjoy the cold, brisk wind.